Hello, bruvs. We're back with another book, Frank Leslie's Christmas book, 1889 to 1890. As it says, Frank Leslie was a publisher at 110 Fifth Avenue, New York. Obviously, this story is broken up into many parts. Frank Leslie's Christmas book. Good morning. Have you used Pear's soap? You dope. Unlike the last book, this one, which purported to be a Christmas story, it was nothing to do with Christmas. Although I did like the book. It's one of my favorites that I've read here. Let's go on with this. And obviously, I believe it's in, we'll see, 1423. Yeah, copyright 1889 by Mrs. Frank Leslie. Stories and pleasant reading. Obviously, I'm not going to read the entire contents because it would take me an hour to read all these contents, so I will just start with the first page of text. Frank Leslie's Christmas book, Salvage of a Christmas Wreck. Wrap the box in this plaid. Come, we'll be back. We'll be at home and safe in no time. Salvage of a Christmas Wreck by Jane Austen. Don't believe this is the Jane Austen. I mean, obviously it's spelled different, but I don't. I did a Google search and I find nothing for this title. Let's go. Faith, mother, but it's a night. Yes, boy, a night to make all good Christians glad. Oh, yes, it is a Christmas Eve, isn't it? And you're all ready for it. Jolly. I don't believe there's another ranch in all Dakota where they're better fixed. So far as trimmings go, it's just first rate. And the young man paused, and taking off his heavy frieze coat, all powdered and stiffened with sleety snow, and looked admiringly round the room, rough and bare in itself, to be sure, for it was a prairie cabin consisting of this one large room, with the little bedroom and pantry at one side and a loft overhead. But tonight the rough walls were hidden under a mass of greenery, while wreaths of moss and ground ivy and wintergreen with its scarlet berries hung from every available corner, and were festooned across the one wide window, covered by no jealous shade, but sending out its stream of ruddy light to cheer the heart of any belated wanderer upon those lonely plains. How nice you've done the looking-glass, mother, and oh, for Malcolm Fosdick in his tour of the room had arrived opposite its chief ornament. This was a large and good engraving of Raphael's well-known picture called The Madonna of the Chair, handsomely framed, in carved wood and grown in the far west, and carved in winter evenings by Malcolm's patient tools. This picture had been decorated with especial care, and before it burned a fairy lamp, the young man's last gift to the mother he never failed to remember in his rare business visits to St. Paul or Chicago. Yes, dear, I knew you loved the picture because of its likeness. Yes, mother, and 'tis a Christmas picture, if ever there was one. But, hark, Mac, what's that? Halloo? Did you hear it? And as mother and son stood staring in each other's faces, every nerve bent to listen to that faint, wild sound of a human voice upon the trackless waste, it came again, broken, faint, yet desperate. Halloo! Help! Help, it said, cried Malcolm, snatching up the coat he had thrown over the back of a chair. But, Mac, it can't be a human being so far from any house in such a wild, wild storm. Oh, Mac, 'tis boggles. 'Tis mocking evil spirits wanting to lure you out. Don't go, my boy. My boy, don't go outside the door. Mother, I'm ashamed of you. What? Hear a human voice crying for help on Christmas Eve and stay snug by my fire because I'm afraid to go out? Nay, mother, you didn't train your boy to be a coward. Besides, don't you know boggles never emigrate? They all stayed behind in Scotland. There now, one kiss and keep up the fire and have hot water. He rushed toward the door, but the stately old woman was before him. Stop! Kneel down till I give you my blessing. 'Twill call the good angels round us both. The young man reverently obeyed, and the next moment was battling with the storm, while the mother, shutting the door with difficulty in the face of the hurtling blast, heaped fuel upon the fire, set the largest lamp upon the window ledge, knelt for one agonized moment before the picture of the Blessed Mother and Child, and then busied herself in preparations such as her son had suggested. Not 15 minutes later, she heard his voice raised in a cheery shout, and as she threw open the door, he staggered in, followed by two other men, whose panting sides and desperate eyes told of the struggle they had endured and the exhaustion that was upon them. Take care of them, mother. Where's the bottle of whiskey? Now or never, 'tis needed. Here, fill me this flask. Give me you plaid, and this one too. Nay, you're not going again, Malcolm, surely. Mother dear, 'tis a wreck on the railway, a mile or so from here, and they saw our light across the prairie, and there's women in it. There, mammy, let me go out and see to these poor fellows. Pale as death, the Scotswoman dropped the clinging arms from round her one boy's neck and let him go, as her forebears had sent their best and bravest to death for the good cause, and turned her attention to the guests beneath her roof. For hand in hand with courage and loyalty goes hospitality in the simple code of Highland morals. His back to the light, his face to the furious blast, dazed and blinded by the stinging sleet, and the wind now and again swooping down upon him with a fierce shriek and whirl like nothing but the onset of a malignant power, Malcolm staggered forward, his strong young blood tingling fiercely, and his muscles braced in eager strength, as he battled steadfastly with the demon of the storm and felt himself conquer. The storm, as well as the darkness, obliterated all landmarks and hid the stars as effectually as if they had been extinguished, so that, in spite of strength, determination, and effort, Malcolm, like many another adventurer, might have wasted his efforts in traversing a circle, but for that guiding Christmas star behind him, the lighted window of his home, where the mother and child smiled gently down upon the illumination that, kindled in their honor, sent its radiance forth to cheer and save the lost ones of the earth. Glancing over his shoulder now and again and governing his course by this landmark, Malcolm Fosdick, after a half-hour's effort, had nearly reached the point where the railway, carried in a sharp curve around a broken piece of country, approached within a mile of his cabin, when he came upon the first bit of wreckage, an emigrant car detailed and carried by its own impetus 100 feet or so down a slight incline at the side of the track, where it had capsized and lay forlornly on its side, its useless wheels moaning and whimpering, as the savage blast now and again stirred them upon their axles. In the lee of this car, a little group of passengers had sought shelter, and managed by breaking and splintering its woodwork to build a rousing fire, serving the double purpose of keeping them from freezing and of guiding any possible rescuers to their side. Coming noiselessly upon this little bivouac, Malcolm paused for an instant to collect his breath before announcing his presence, when his eyes fell upon a sight that in a moment staggered and weakened him, as all the howling demons of the storm had failed to do. In the most sheltered corner of the encampment, a young woman, seated upon a broken bench, bent over a little child, upon her knees, eagerly examining its face, and little as she knew or thought of her own appearance, reproducing with marvelous fidelity the graceful pose of the Madonna della Sedia. Was this a strange coincidence? Well, then, what shall we say to the fact? For fact it was that the sweet, pure face of that Madonna, dream of the great master's brain, or modeled from some lovely maid whose ashes have long since been transmuted into Italian flowers, was here incarnated line by line, tint by tint, in the living woman sitting beside that fire of wreckage and bending over her sleeping child. A moment Malcolm stood transfixed, and then, with a strange hoarse cry, sprang forward, gasping, "Elsie!" The young mother raised her head, and into the pale cheeks poured a flood of startled color. "Who? What? Oh, Malcolm! Malcolm, is it? Can it be you yourself? 'Tis I myself, Elsie. Elsie! Elsie Murray!" Something in the last words called back the color, already ebbing in the fair sweet face, and the tears with it. But although the great blue eyes rose in one swift glance of appeal, they fell directly, and again Elsie stooped, Madonna-like, over her child. The other members of the group were on foot now, and several men from the train were running up at rumor of a rescue, so that Fosdick had all at once more to attend to than a dozen heads and tongues could well arrange. But after a while, when it had been concluded that the passengers could most of them be made comfortable until morning, by fires and barricades and such arrangements as some old pioneers of the West had already put in progress, Malcolm returned to the encampment beside the capsized car, and finding the drooping figure still seated as he had left it, stood awkwardly silent for a moment, and then asked, Is Mr. Murray on the train, Mrs. Murray?" The white, sad face was raised for a moment, and with no shadow of emotion came the quiet reply, "He is buried in the old kick-yard at home, and I believe my boy is dying now. No, no, Elsie, God forgive my hard heart. No, the boy shall not die. Come, dear, rouse yourself, and make a fight for his life. The dear old mother is waiting for you a short mile across the prairie. And light and warmth and shelter. Come, Elsie, woman, stand up and let me wrap the boy in this plaid. No, let me first pour a spoonful of this spirit down his throat, and you must take a drop as well. Now, then, there's a brave lass. Come, we'll be at home and safe in no time. Were you coming to me, Elsie?" "No, but to my brother Hugh in Oregon, they call it," faltered Elsie, already trustful and courageous. And the light from the Christmas illumination led them, and hope and love carried them, and over all the child of Bethlehem protected them, until they reached the house where all good things awaited them. And Margaret Fosdick, wasting no time in wonder or in questioning, gave herself to the task of nursing the little child back to life and health. I didn't skip a page, did I? Come on. Don't want to rip you. Just turn, please, please. Waited them for 1920. Yeah. Among the half-dozen men who had accompanied the young couple home was one with a certain amount of medical skill, although, as Malcolm mischievously whispered to Elsie, "The old wife's the better doctor of the two, and my Malcolm will be happy yet," whispered the mother, as she laid Elsie and her boy in her own bed. "For you'll not say no again, lassie, will you?" What's with this cat and the alligator? "If the dear Lord sends me a Christmas gift, mother, I'll not refuse it," whispered the girl, with a shy, sweet smile. And so the morning broke, while still the herald angels sang, "Peace on earth, goodwill toward men." That's the end. It just ends like that. That's great. I don't understand. That's the whole story. She had left him, and then he found her in a crashed train. All right, that's interesting. Let's check the index to see. No, that's it. I guess that's it. All right. Well, there you go. All right, perhaps goodbye. Goodbye.